I was staring at my phone at 3 in the morning and I realized something that genuinely made me put it down. Because I had just laughed at something I didn't even find funny. Not because it was funny, but because 400,000 other people already laughed before me. And in that moment I thought, am I even feeling my own emotions anymore? That's when it hit me. What if the internet isn't changing what we see, it's literally changing how we feel? And worse, what if it's already happened? We're going to uncover how the internet is quietly rewiring human emotion in real time. Not metaphorically, not social media is bad surface level stuff, but real psychological shifts happening inside millions of people every day. And by the end of this video, you might realize something uncomfortable. You don't just consume emotions online anymore, you absorb them. And sometimes you don't even know which emotions were originally yours. Most people think the internet just shows us things, videos, posts, reactions, like it's a window. But that assumption breaks the moment you look at what actually happens inside your brain. Because here's the contradiction. If the internet was just showing us emotion, why do entire crowds of people start feeling the same thing at the same time? Anger spikes that spreads in hours, fear that travels across countries, even sadness that feels coordinated. So the question becomes, are we watching emotions? Or are we inside an emotional system that we don't control? There was a guy, let's call him Mark. He opens TikTok just to relax for 10 minutes. He sees one angry video about something controversial and he agrees with it. Then another video shows the opposite side, now he's slightly annoyed. 10 minutes later, he's arguing with strangers in comments he didn't even care about 1 hour ago. But here's the weird part. When he finally closes the app, he wasn't just angry, he couldn't even remember what started it. And that's the first clue. The internet doesn't just change your mood, it carries your mood forward with you. But here's where it gets stranger. Why does it feel so real while it's happening? Because you'd expect online emotions to feel weaker than in real life. It's just screens, right? But research keeps showing the opposite. Online emotional experiences can feel stronger than real ones. So now we hit a contradiction. If digital emotions are fake, why do they feel more intense than reality? And why do they linger longer? Something doesn't add up. Because maybe the internet isn't weakening emotion. Maybe it's amplifying it past natural limits, and that leads to something even more unsettling. What if the internet is selecting which emotions survive? Up until now, we've talked about individuals, but the real shift happens when we zoom out. Because the internet doesn't just change you, it changes what humans feel at scale. And to understand that, we need to look at something most people never even notice. Emotions online don't spread randomly. They spread like infections, and some emotions spread faster than others, so the question becomes, why those emotions? A few years ago, a single short video went viral. It wasn't funny, it wasn't exciting, it was just someone crying quietly with no explanation. And within hours, millions of people were crying too. Not because they knew the person, not because they understood the context, but because the emotion itself was contagious. And here's the twist. Most people didn't even realize why they felt sad. They just did. Which raises a disturbing question. If emotion spreads without context, then what exactly are we actually sharing online? Let's zoom out. If emotions can spread like viruses online, then social media isn't just a platform, it's an emotional ecosystem. A system that can amplify fear, multiply anger, compress empathy, and accelerate outrage. But here's the real question. If your emotions are being shaped by a system that you don't see, how much of you is still you? There's a phenomenon that's quietly happening. People are starting to feel emotions based on how they think they should feel online, not how they actually feel. For example, someone sees a tragic story. They don't feel sadness at first, they feel pressure to perform sadness correctly. How do I comment? How do I like it? Do I share it? And slowly, emotion becomes behavior instead of experience. And once that shift happens, you stop feeling emotions internally and start managing them externally. But here's where it gets darker. What happens when even your sadness becomes optimized? We assume that emotion is personal, private, inside of us. But the internet introduces a contradiction. If millions of people react the same way at the same time, is emotion still personal at all? Or has it become synchronized? And if it is synchronized, who or what is setting the rhythm? Let's talk about fear, because fear behaves differently online. Fear doesn't need truth, it only needs speed. That's why alarming content spreads faster than calm content. Outrage outperforms explanation. Panic travels farther than clarity. And over time, your nervous system starts adapting to that environment. So you don't just see the internet, you start to feel like the internet feels. Constant urgency, tension, emotional readiness, even when nothing is happening. But here's the real turning point. What if this isn't accidental? What if platforms aren't just reflecting human emotion? What if they are leaning into emotions that keep us engaged the longest? Because if you can measure attention, you can optimize emotion. And if you can optimize emotion, you can predict behavior. And suddenly, emotion stops being human and starts becoming engineered. A girl sits in bed scrolling. She laughs at something, scrolls, feels sad at something, scrolls, feels angry, scrolls. Then she pauses for a second and thinks, I don't know what to feel right now. Not because she feels nothing, but because she feels too much, too fast, with no space in between. And that might be the most dangerous shift of all. Not emotional loss, but emotional overload without meaning. Now, zoom out again. If millions of people are cycling through emotions faster than they can process them, then we are no longer individuals reacting to the world, but we're a part of a global emotional feedback loop, where your emotions feed the algorithm. Your algorithm feeds someone else, and their reaction feeds you back. A loop with no off switch. So the question becomes, are we expressing emotions, or are we just circulating them? And if emotions are circulating instead of originating, then something fundamental changes about a human being. Because emotions were never just reactions, they were supposed to be experiences. But now they're content, data, engagement signals, or viral triggers, which leads to the final uncomfortable thought. If the internet can shape what you feel, at what point does it start shaping who you are? Maybe the internet isn't changing human emotion. Maybe it's revealing something that we never had to see before. That human emotion has always connected, always contagious, always collective, but now, for the first time in history, we can see it happening in real time. Every laugh, every panic, every wave of sadness spreading through millions of minds all at once. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Because the real question was never, is the internet changing emotion? It's what happens when emotion becomes connected to everything all the time. Now remember that moment I told you about? At 3 in the morning? Laughing at something I didn't even find funny, I thought I was just tired. But now I realize I wasn't just reacting, I was participating in something much bigger than me. And the scariest part, so were you. Right now, without even noticing.